Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer podcast. I'm your co-host, Thomas Vick, joined by your co-host, Seth Wilson. Seth, how's it going today?
Thomas, I'm doing great. We got some great sunshine outside here, and it's spring and the grass is growing. It's just, it's always a fun time of the year. We finished up the basketball tournament this last week, and so I think I'm getting a little bit more sleep rather than staying up trying to watch all these games. How about you?
There you go. There you go. Um, yeah, it's a beautiful day in central Indiana today. Looking forward to maybe going home and mowing the grass. It's that time of year, so it's been a good week. And I thought today we might talk about a topic that attorneys starting out have questions about from time to time: how to charge fees. And one way that you can do that is through a flat fee arrangement with the client. It's one way that I do a lot of my legal services. I charge flat fees, and I found it to be a helpful way and a way that clients feel comfortable with entering into an agreement for legal services. So I thought we might chat about that and maybe some things to keep in mind in deciding to charge a flat fee.
Yeah, great topic of discussion and kind of goes hand in glove with mowing the yard, right? So when you're doing legal work, it's hard to figure out when something is 10% completed or 20% completed. There's a lot of unknown variables, and there are some kinds of cases that are more like mowing your yard where you can see the progress being made toward completion, and you can typically see if you missed something and need to fix it. And so it's a little difficult when you're starting out to know what's the best method that's going to provide clarity with your clients, that's going to give them confidence to enter into that engagement with you and make sure that they are feeling comfortable with their choice of a lawyer, someone who knows and has the experience to do what needs to be done, and is not going to get surprised by a large bill at the end of the engagement. And so, flat fees, let's start, I guess, with definitions for folks. How would you define what a flat fee is, or how do you do that in your practice?
Yeah, I would say a flat fee is just a certain amount that the client is to pay prior to my starting the legal services, and that's the expectation of the client that that's all they're going to pay. It's just one single amount. This is what it is. So if it's for an estate plan, here's the flat fee, and that's all you're going to have to pay. Maybe you've got some filing fee expenses that will be passed on to the client, but for the legal service itself, it's just one price, and we're not going to be nickel and diming you for everything else. We're not going to be charging our hourly rate over and above that flat fee.
Yeah, and we were talking just before we started recording that the Indiana State Bar Association's Res Gestae magazine in April of 2026 has a great article by James Bell and Connor Delahanty on ethical use of flat fees. And so I would encourage anyone that is considering using flat fees or is using flat fees even to go back and review that article, because there is an updated advisory opinion from the Indiana Disciplinary Commission, number 2-25, that gives some more guidance on what is a flat fee, how to use a flat fee, and then the article goes into some great detail on the do's and don'ts of utilizing these fees. And so very helpful as you're thinking through potentially utilizing more flat fees in your practice. And Thomas, we're like you in that if we utilize a flat fee arrangement, we will acknowledge that with the client, explain how that works. And we typically will ask for a half of that flat fee up front. So it's not probably a true flat fee in that sense, where we basically have that get started amount that we will request up front. And that covers kind of the initial consultation and drafting of documentation and review of that. And then we ask for the rest when the project is actually completed. Sometimes there can be a little bit of time between the two. So I always want to make sure that the clients know we are motivated on our side to finish the project because we still have money to earn from them, and they still have some incentive as well to help keep things moving forward. So I feel like that's been a good scenario for us. And we don't take that actually as earned money until we've finished the project. So if there is ever a need to refund those funds, we have those available for the client.
Yeah. One thing that I have learned over the years is that clients just feel comfortable knowing what the price is before you get started. A lot of attorneys that bill hourly, when the client asks the attorney, how much is this going to cost? The attorney will hem-haw around the answer and say, well, I think it's going to be $1,500, but if it doesn't go well, then it could be $5,000. And that spread, and really the $5,000 is not a guarantee that that's going to be the limit of the attorney fee. That doesn't feel great to the client. So it provides some security, some confidence of the client in knowing that I'm hiring you for this. If I can take this hit on, the price, then I know I'm going to get this service, and that's going to be all there is to it. I think it's a way to really take the stigma of coming into a lawyer's office and meeting with somebody that you feel kind of not on the same plane with. It kind of makes people feel more comfortable, I think, in starting that attorney-client relationship.
Agreed. And there's so many surprises in life, and getting a large bill from your lawyer is probably not one of the surprises you want to experience in your life, right? So it's a good thing to have the capability of offering that. And again, when you're first starting out as an attorney, you don't have enough of an experience base potentially to know what is a reasonable flat fee. How much time will this project or engagement take you to complete? What's a fair number for that? And so, one thing as time has gone on in my practice is I will take kind of what I think the cost is for the delivery of those services, and I'll reevaluate it and make sure that effectively, or I know what my net effective rate is. Say that 3 times fast, right? And so trying to figure out, if I know it takes me X number of hours to complete the project, what is my hourly rate effectively with that? Because some projects will take more or less time depending on, and then I'm using that to make sure that my flat fees are still considered reasonable and that I'm not overcharging or undercharging for the work that needs to be done. And it's hard to gauge that initially because you just don't have a lot of data to compare with. And that's where it can be helpful to reach out to some colleagues in your city, wherever you're practicing, the county where you practice, or attend CLEs and talk to lawyers that are more experienced in that particular practice area and ask them how they do their billing and how they set those things up. Because again, clients don't like the classic lawyer answer of it depends when you tell them how much is this going to cost.
Yeah. And also another factor for me in deciding to do the flat fee, doing the flat fee agreements is just an acknowledgement of the value that the attorney is providing. If we do a trust and you're able to avoid probate, that's an attorney fee that you're actually going to save on the back end. And so that actually helps the client, and in the long run, it's a value that you're providing. And then when you kind of think about maybe government benefits that you're going to be protecting through the planning that you're doing, that's a value too. And maybe it's trying to do all the documents for a big purchase agreement. Maybe you're dealing with some real estate developers, things like that. Having perhaps a flat fee for that kind of relationship, that kind of legal service would be appropriate. But there's a lot of value that the attorney provides that may not be reflective just in that hourly rate. And so that flat rate may be a way that the attorney can say, this is what it's going to be, no more, no less. And the client feels good about that, and it's reflective of the value that you're providing.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think another side of that is just ensuring that you are continuing to track your time on those engagements. You're not necessarily going to share that time tracking with the client potentially, but you want to know, have I gauged this correctly? If the project is taking me 10 hours, then I can do the math and figure out pretty easily I'm charging in the right ballpark here, or I maybe need to raise that rate the next time I have an opportunity to do that. So whether that's on the next engagement or the next year on the annual kind of review of your billing and those rates and trying to figure out how to do that. Ultimately, we're trying to get what's fair for the services that we are offering. And there's so many variables that go into that, like you said, in terms of the complexity involved and the savings to the estate if it's an estate plan, or how much time, effort, and energy is it going to take outside of normal working hours? Are you needing to be available on nights and weekends where we don't get paid overtime necessarily, but that may be a factor that I'm willing to pay a premium as a client so that I can have on demand access to the lawyer? And we've negotiated that as part of our flat fee agreement that, hey, you're going to be available for me because this deal may need your response in a short amount of time. And so there's all kinds of factors that would go into pricing that appropriately. And then I think a key is to be disciplined in tracking your time against that to see how that affects your net effective rate at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you always need to be evaluating, is the flat fee that I'm charging reasonable? And maybe a flat fee is unreasonable and it's actually you're charging too little. So we need to be thinking about that as well. But like I said, I think clients feel good when they see a flat fee and they get the service that you have promised them. I just think it's a great way to start your law practice and just get some security, get some money in the door, giving the client some assurance as to the fees.
Agreed. And I think it's good over time because you can evaluate it, and you have to be cognizant of the issue of if you are changing that fee structure significantly and you're in a referral based practice, the clients are going to share those costs with each other. How much did it cost you at so and so law firm to do such and such activity? And so you don't want to have it be a widely swinging pendulum, so to speak. You want to be very thoughtful about it and intentional about it up front. Don't undersell your services right away, but be prepared to answer why this particular transaction may be more costly than what their friend who referred them to you may have, or be willing to adjust and match those prices as time goes on to keep.
That's a great point, because I've had that experience where the fee I've charged one client is different than what he expected because he had talked to a previous client of mine, and that previous client may have been like 3 years ago, and my fees are not the same. And so there should be some kind of relationship among your cases that you're taking on right now. Just because somebody has more money, that doesn't mean you get to charge more fees. But on the same token, this kind of gets to like a biblical principle of being fair to people. Just because somebody doesn't have as much money doesn't mean you charge less. You still are providing the same service. And so you kind of have to toe that line of, these are what my fees are. And for just an accountability from my firm's perspective, I basically made a menu of what we charge, put it into Clio so that I don't even have to ask myself how much I should charge. I've already decided, this is a revocable trust plan. This is how much we're going to charge. So that's kind of how I think about it is, don't charge because you got a rich client, but don't charge too little because you have a poor client.
Agreed. Again, it's all dependent on the facts and circumstances of that particular client's situation. And every situation is unique, which in the estate planning context, you would kind of think, well, it's drafting a trust, or it's drafting a will, or it's drafting a power of attorney. Yes, but each of the families that you interact with have unique things that they may be dealing with. And I think there's some that will be a little bit easier in terms of it's more straightforward because there's maybe one child versus multiple children. Yes, I know grammar. And
Yeah.
you can also think about, what if it's a blended family scenario, right? That's going to increase the complexity a little bit. And so I love your idea of having decided ahead of time what that's going to look like, because oftentimes those are the most difficult conversations for the lawyer is, wait a minute, what do I charge in this scenario? And we've already thought about that ahead of time. You can go in there with confidence and say, okay, I've already said that this is what I think it's going to take when I've had more of an objective time to look at everything, look at all the variables and the factors, rather than when I'm looking at someone right across the table from me and trying to figure out, boy, there's all these different things and I really like these people. They're super nice and all these kind of things. And I want to make sure that they hire you have to have some of that objectivity built in to really help navigate those conversations with confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else that you want to add about flat fees?
No, I think there's a lot of information available out on the websites and AI and all that fun stuff to figure out how to best utilize flat fees. Again, the article that James Bell and Connor Delahanty just put out in that April of 2026 issue is really helpful. It just kind of gives you a good overview and I think points to some really good things to consider, make sure that is implemented into your client engagement letters and fee agreements and those kind of things. And so take a look at that. That's a great resource for you if you're thinking about adding, or even if you already utilize flat fees, it's a good reminder and double check to make sure you've done it in the most ethical manner possible.
Yeah, good reminders there for sure. I encourage everybody to take a look at that issue, April 2026 of Res Gestae. inbar.org is a great resource. We also have some great resources for those that are solo and small firm attorneys, those that are trying to launch their law firm. I encourage everybody to subscribe to our podcast on youtube.com and also go anywhere that you can find this podcast and subscribe. That would help us out and will help others find us so that we can help lawyers launch.
Thomas, thanks for the time to get today. We'll look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thanks.